Here comes the nasty gram.
Send a priest to save my soul, forget it.
Welcome back to the Nastygram RPG podcast. This is the Ithaca Project, Sixth Law, Equilibrium.
Feeling it too hard is the poison to the heart of a cynic. Redemption. Now I'm waking to pain to shake it.
I'm writing this account to make sure the truth about what happened at 14 Pine Ridge Lane is documented. On May 27th, Counselor Pearson, Sergeant Buckholtz, Dr. Kane, and I went to the home of Fritz Zwicky. In his home, we discovered a secret room filled with icons, painting, texts from various religious groups. A common theme seemed to be that each referenced human contact with the supernatural. While investigating the scene, we were attacked by two men. The official report will say that Counselor Pearson's account was inaccurate due to the intensity of the situation. I'm sure it will be easy to accept that a woman with no combat experience may have misread the situation. This is wrong. I've served in over a dozen combat operations, besides trained soldiers. Counselor Pearson handled herself as well as any of them. She displayed the composure and professionalism that she also displays in the courtroom, and I believe her account of what happened next to be 100% accurate. The first attacker was shot by Pearson, but escaped on foot after being pursued by myself and Sergeant Buckholtz. The second attacker was also shot by Pearson. The official report will say this was a glancing head wound that caused massive bleeding. This was in fact a kill shot, center mass at point-blank range. The second attacker also escaped on foot.
Well, hello and welcome back, Nastygram listeners, to the Ithaca Project here at the Nastygram RPG Podcast. This is Josh, and I will continue to be your handler.
And I'm Matt, coming back at you as Sergeant Gilbert Buckholtz of the Ithaca PD.
Hey, this is Devin. I'm playing Counselor Audrey Annie Oakley Pearson of the FBI.
And this is Jake playing Agent Alan Slater, also of the FBI.
Hey everyone, Dan here, playing Dr. Atticus Kane, the scientist.
So, we're going to do this session a little differently. We will pick back up right where we were at Fritz Zwicky's house in the aftermath of this tense and longer-running gunfight than I ever expected it would be, due to some interesting strategic, great decisions and the results you found. But instead of kind of going right back in and picking up in a role-playing sense, I asked you guys to think about what your immediate sort of investigative function would be from this second up till like the next 12 hours or so this night, the next morning. We're going to resolve that, and then we're going to kind of see where the investigation is going to take place. I've given you guys a bunch of threads, so I want to give some time for you guys to resolve some of this, and then we're going to get to play with some home scenes. So we're going to get our first kind of real significant passage of time here. So, right off the bat, what are you guys doing? Aside from, I'm going to say, as a default, there will be information sharing, everything that, we didn't have time to talk through in character. Dan, you mentioned some of the things Kane found, the stuff that was discovered in the house, the stuff from this gunfight. You guys kind of, anything, unless you deliberately want to withhold something that you're uncomfortable with, in which case, let me know. Other than that, the information will be passed around. So beyond that, what is each of you doing individually or collectively from here? And Matt, I also kind of gave you an extra action for the PD.
Yeah.
Because you are sort of, Ithaca PD is at your disposal, essentially.
Yeah, and I think in this sort of first immediate with Officer Leach showing up to the scene of a shooting and reports of somebody being hit is that he's going to direct Leach to go to the hospital and see if there are any reports for trauma patients or, anything of that nature reported there, as well as sort of once everything's settled here, he's going to go and file all of his official police paperwork for a shooting, discharge of weapons, all of that kind of stuff. Keep everything dotted, T's crossed, underlined, triplicate.
All righty. Very fastidious. Counselor?
I think as we wrap up at the house, Counselor Pearson will return to the hotel or the motor inn, grab a change of clothes, and head out into Ithaca. She is rattled and disturbed, and I think she wants to take her mind off of work, even just for a few hours, sort of find herself at a watering hole and just deep in her cups, safe walking distance from the hotel, but sort of finding herself in a stupor just to forget for a little bit.
Okay. I like it.
I think Agent Slater is at Zwicky's house until after dawn, with whatever Ithaca PD are on site. He's kind of taken over this search operation, looking for what he thought for sure was going to be a body not far down that hill. Jacob, know that there is no body at the bottom of that hill, but at the moment, Alan Slater is. Do we find a body?
That's a twist.
Yeah, he's dead. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I think
you find the body of Adolf Hitler.
There. Already? What?
GG.
So he's kind of leading a futile search of the woods for a body.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how this is going to work, I'm going to have you guys make a roll for each of your actions. There's a baseline of if you're using a trained skill, I'm going to give you something for it based on your skill level, but a success or a crit success will give you additional kind of thresholds. And I'll also let Dan join. I forgot you were here.
There you go. All good. I think there's... we're just going to do the immediate one.
Yep.
I think his immediate action is while Agent Slater is kind of fanning out the area and there's people in the woods, Atticus will sit on the porch and knowing that he is secure with agents and officers around and light his pipe and watch that tobacco and smoke curl into the night as that blood did and think about the chemical nature of what he saw and what transpired. And one other quick scene with Audrey while he's smoking his pipe on the porch and she's getting ready to leave. He wants to ask the counselor a legal question regarding the work that Dr. Laporte had been doing and what would be the FBI's their wherewithal as to take that research from his wife if there was any in the house.
Okay, so we'll resolve these around. Matt, first off, for what you're doing, I'm going to have you make a bureaucracy roll. How fucking sexy is that?
Wow. I actually have bureaucracy. That's fucking perfect for me.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
I wish I could make a bureaucracy roll.
Oh, it's 46 over 40.
Okay. You go about filing your reports, sending out PD, doing their thing. I'll say what you get back as a baseline, doing your due diligence, directing your assets in that direction. You get a report of a break-in at a small town doctor's office in Ithaca. Break in with reported theft of medical equipment. What was stolen? Small stuff that could be used for personal first aid and surgery, plasma, sewing equipment, things like that. That's reported the next morning.
Okay.
Agent Pearson?
Agent Pearson hangs out at the scene for a couple of hours. I think she categorizes some of the personal documents before filing them away again. And then we'll eventually, when Agent Buckholtz leaves, she'll probably catch a ride back with him, go to the motor lodge. And
Okay. What I'll say is I'll let you make a law roll.
okay.
And if you succeed, I'll give you a bonus to, I think what you mentioned would be maybe your ongoing one.
Great.
Because that's basically what you're doing is gathering docs.
I got a 62 over 60.
Okay. So it just won't affect your future roll.
Sure.
Just giving you a chance for a bonus.
She is distracted and
I like it.
preoccupied.
Good role playing. Slater,
Yep.
what do you call this? Search or military science land? I'm going to give you kind of a different, I'm going to give you something either way.
Okay. How many people are helping me?
I mean, at some point, I'd say up to 4.
Okay. Then in that case, it's probably less about my personal searching and it's more about the actual organization of the search effort. So I'm going to go with military science land.
Okay.
I love the diversity of skills that we get to use.
Failed.
I love the consistency of failures.
I don't know if I've made a roll.
I think you made 2 out of combat.
You do not find a body.
Damn. Really?
Wow, man.
You do find some indications of passage. What you are able to put together with your search, with your background, with the other assets helping you, one thing is there is still fresh blood from the original person you engaged that Pearson hit second. There is fresh blood. That seems completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
It also appears that person was moving more impaired. Obviously, they were moving down a slope. So was the other one. That one that left from the porch seemed to move almost unimpaired. The one that was going down the slope was moving, surprisingly well for being hurt, but was still showing signs of injury.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was really not.
Okay.
Kane.
I have goosebumps. That's gross.
Yes, sir.
I'm scared.
What
So
do you want to roll chemistry?
Yeah, I think that's the plan, to think about how a compound like blood could change so quickly in the time that we witnessed. 38 under 40.
Okay. We'll say the other blood was also brought to your attention. Again, you're not a medical professional, but that's like blood. It's acting like blood. It's eventually kind of drying and clotting.
Tastes like blood?
Tastes like blood. It's
Okay.
delicious.
Perfect.
Has a little tint of sauerkraut.
Okay.
Ooh. The other blood that was on the
Pollock.
porch, it basically was moving in as if time was sped up. It's not unnatural. It's what blood does over time. It's what any organic compound does as it breaks down, but accelerated exponentially. With the success, even without medical knowledge, your mind extrapolates to if that rest of that person's anatomy reacted the same way, in a limited sense, you would imagine a wound might seal right up.
What would I think without a medical background, imagining what it would do to the rest of the body in that capacity.
I mean, hard to know. Can't extrapolate it beyond
my mind
that.
just blew up anyways. So, okay. All right.
Yeah, don't worry. There'll be some standard rules
sure.
coming.
Is
Great.
Kane on the porch of the house?
Yeah. When he's sitting there smoking his pipe just thinking.
I come over and I sit next to him, and I light up a cigarette. And I say, wound must not have been as bad as we thought. Might have been a grazing head wound or something. Those bleed a lot. But that guy, he made it down that hill. He was in control of his body. He was moving quick, too. Found some footprints. That other one, though, that other one's hurt bad.
Kane blows out some smoke from his pipe and kind of knocks it a bit, adjusting the tobacco, and he says, Agent, I believe you on the first one, or on the latter, I should say. That man is wounded, possibly even dying. But the first, there is something unseen at play here. The
What
blood.
do you mean?
He gestures to where there is no blood left on the porch.
There's like a remnant of a stain.
Sure. Even if you called that wound a graze or a glancing shot, there is the matter of how the blood behaved, the matter of what it did. And I am not a medical man. I do not profess that knowledge, but I do understand chemistry. And the nature of it, it's as though the time around it or in it sped up. I know you're a man who has seen some things. I know you've seen wounds, you've seen blood, you've seen its remnants. You know yourself that blood will last, it'll stain, it'll coagulate. But this, he kind of gestures, kind of waves his hand through his own smoke. This is something else.
You see Slater, you notice his hand kind of shaking as he takes a drag of the cigarette. Says, you're a chemist.
I know a good deal about many of the sciences.
You know, they used to call the war, they used to call it the chemist war.
He slowly nods, not saying anything, letting you speak.
I remember we were bringing a shipment up to the front line. The wind was blowing right off the German side. From the road, we saw these yellow clouds. Weirdest thing you ever saw, just creeping across the ground. By the time we got to our trenches, everyone in them was dead or dying.
It's an awful business. Kane has a flashback, a moment while he's sitting here with Agent Slater. And it's when he was in Chicago. He had a teaching position in Chicago in the early 20s. And Jake, when did your...
When did what? What?
Was your son killed or your wife?
He was killed in 32.
32. He's Kane's flashback is in Chicago, and he's just picked up a copy of the Chicago Tribune. The headline is Slater Strikes Again, and it's about a massive prohibition bust on a cargo shipment of alcohol. And it's describing the agent who led the investigation as Agent Slater. And it goes on a little bit to talk about the threats and harassment that the agent has suffered for his actions. And then back on the porch, he's listening to this man talk about World War I and his compatriots suffering the threat of mustard gas. And he just reflects on this man's experience and what he's been through already.
He quietly finishes the cigarette, and he says, I think I'm going to go to church.
Atticus nods.
He nods back and then walks away.
Slater walks away, leaving just Pearson and Kane in the house. Cops still milling about.
Agent Pearson sort of standing inside the door. The door's still wide open. And she has tears running down her face. She just stands on the inside of the door. There's a wisp of smoke that blows out. As she hears the footsteps of Slater walking away from that conversation, she finds her way back on the couch and sort of looks at the work she was doing and just nods her head and sits on the couch and almost closes her eyes and tries to find some escape.
Your eyes kind of open to the sound of a glass being placed on the table next to you. It's got a small amount of whiskey in it, something that Atticus was able to find in the house. Atticus sits next to you and he says, "Will you be all right?"
She picks up the glass and smells it, takes a sip, puts it back down.
"I know it's not the time, but I have a legal question for you."
She nods.
"I intend to visit the widow of Dr. Laporte, his wife Adele. I know her. It's likely that she'll turn over any information, but I wanted to know if the agency had any claim on it, to make it smoother, easier."
She looks at you, sort of nods in understanding. And that part of her brain turns on. She starts sort of nodding her head as she thinks. If the research that they were doing for Project North Star, if any chance it had anything to do with the confrontation between Zwicky and Laporte, then it is material evidence in a murder case. It would give us claim jurisdiction over any of that evidence, no matter where it is.
That's reassuring to know. Thank you, Counselor. He kind of gives your shoulder a squeeze. And similar to that moment with Agent Slater, he thinks back at a time in Chicago, in a very dark bar, where he imagined or he saw a very different Audrey. Atticus was in a bar that was known for the gay community. Atticus had never revealed to his family or his friends or his colleagues that he was gay. And this was his first time in society, in a place that would know that he was.
And accept him for it.
And accept him for it. And he remembers meeting a very confident, very charismatic young woman named Audrey, who bought him, ironically, his first drink at a gay bar.
What was it?
Great. I don't drink.
Old fashioned.
Old fashioned.
Old-fashioned.
There we go.
Be a cool camera cut from that flashback to the one before it to the one after it when your eyes first locked at the airport, and now back to this quiet living room inside Zwicky's house in the middle of the night.
Atticus kind of squeezes your shoulder and gets up and walks out.
Audrey starts gathering the papers and putting them into her bag.
Ithaca PD. Sergeant Buckholtz is finishing up his reports. The chief comes in. He's there early. 6 o'clock in the morning. Buckholtz is still there. Sergeant, you're certainly in here early, getting after it.
Yes, sir.
He looks at the coffee stains and the machine running, your biliary eyes, and he says, Christ, you're still here?
The reports, sir, babysitting the FBI ain't easy.
Listen, I want you to know one thing. The end results are what are important here. You know what I tasked you with? I don't even need to know all the details of what you're doing. The paperwork will come. We'll make it all work. I want your eyes out there with them, getting this thing wrapped up. I've been told that I don't need to know all the answers that come from this investigation. When it's done, you give me the murder report, the shooting report, whatever the hell else comes of it. Along the way, you let me know what you need. I don't want to tell you the weight of the phone call I had last night. Somebody I didn't think I'd ever talk to.
Sir?
This might be the only time until I'm retired and coming back to check on you if you're sitting in the chief's seat. You're in charge right now.
Jesus fucking Christ.
All right. So now we're going to go into a little bit of a longer investigative phase.
Cool.
And then we'll resolve our home scenes. So I asked you guys to think about this. We'll go around the table in the same way. So Matt, over the course of the next few days, week, whatever we can kind of call it here, I'm going to say some simple things right off the bat. Obviously, you guys are trying to find these shooters, whatever. Unless any of you are specifically directing extra attention in a way you want to use as a role, you haven't found them. But obviously, you're doing due diligence in all the areas of the investigation. Another thing to mention, Hans Bet is with Dr. Gibbs. So you have accounted for all members of Project North Star.
Okay.
With the exception of Project Zwicky. Project Zwicky.
Project Zwicky. Should have named it that. God damn it.
With the exception of Dr. Zwicky, who is, as of this point, unaccounted for.
And considered a suspect.
And under suspicion.
Yep.
Dr. Gibbs, Dr. Bett, and Dr. Kassler are all now not constrained to Cornell, to Roshan and Landry Hall, but they're spending essentially all their time there. Their families have made measures for safety. This is kind of due diligence shit you've done. So you have those three members there. Dr. Backer confirmed out of town, positive contacts. You've confirmed that with other sources. Otto Laporte dead. Those are the 6 members. You can talk to them further as needed. They will be available.
Gibbs and Bacher were the only 2 specific Germans, right?
Bet.
Sorry.
What was Zwicky's first name?
Fritz.
Fritz.
So, ongoing, what is Sergeant Buck, his main focus, and what are you directing the PD? Again, assuming that a lot of your other activities are going into, as well as the PD, kind of all the stuff I talked about, the regular kind of, investigative functions and protective functions as well that you guys have talked about.
I think Buck is looking at this as the main focus is going to be to find Zwicky right now. He's sort of the lead suspect. He's going to task the force to put out a search for Zwicky's 36 Ford. Reports that it's stolen, as well as have them canvass around the city and surrounding areas for reports of large moving trucks, as well as patrolling industrial areas in and around Ithaca, looking for increased activity and anything of that nature. As well as for himself, he is going to finally get a shot at the autopsy of the late Dr. Laporte in the, let's see, I believe we said it's a meatpacking facility.
Yes, a closed meatpacking facility.
Yeah.
Halloran's.
Yes,
Halloran's.
thank you. Halloran's. And get a full report on how he died, times, those kinds of things before releasing it to the coroner and the family. to sort of tie up any loose ends and allow them to put the doctor to rest.
Okay. I like that. So we will call the police function. What do we use for investigation?
Search or
Search. I'm going to almost call this one streetwise. Or, yeah, because we're kind of
Bureaucracy.
bureaucracy or streetwise.
I'm okay with streetwise.
And I'm going to give you a plus 20 employing the PD in that function. And then it's going to be medicine for your search. So we'll come back to you for the results. Devin, Agent Pearson?
Agent Pearson is going to spend some time in the quiet of the room at the motor lodge. She has her tube radio tuned into, she's listening to music. Maybe for an hour or two every night she'll listen to BBC, but she needs something to help her focus. And what she's focusing on is reviewing and scrutinizing the personal documents of Fritz Zwicky. She's looking for contacts, any place he might go. He had a truckload, according to the doctor, a truckload of equipment. So if he has any receipts or deeds to other properties, any indication of where he might bring this equipment. In addition, any of those personal documents, if they have. So we know that Zwicky was isolated from the team at North Star. Gibbs disagreed with some of his research, and it seems like he brought quite a bit of it home with him. So if he wasn't communicating with the team, maybe he was communicating with someone else or someone's. And so she's just looking through those personal documents to find sort of any clue of where or to whom he went.
Okay. So I'm going to call that law.
Sure. Law is great.
Jake, Agent Slater.
Agent Slater is going to church. All the churches.
All the churches.
I assume Ithaca doesn't have that many churches / synagogues. Probably no mosques. Not in 1940.
Okay.
But if there is like a synagogue or do they just call it temple?
Temple.
Go to temple. Yeah, I'll go there too.
Okay.
Yeah, making the rounds. Visiting
rounds.
all the holy places.
I love that your final
bringing
scene.
a picture
Are you trying to find God?
Yeah, bring a picture of God and asking if they've seen him.
A large bearded man pointing a single finger out.
I do have a picture of
Or is it
Zwicky.
Alanis Morissette?
Yeah. Bringing a picture of Zwicky, asking if any of the priests or rabbis or pastors have seen him.
Okay. So we'll call that human.
Yeah,
I like
makes
that.
sense.
And finally, Dr. Kane. If you
Yeah.
will, sir.
as you
Be quiet.
quiet. Kane.
Quite capital. I don't know if that's how you use that.
Yeah, I
carry
think
on.
I used it the first time around. Kane is going to. He has engineering, and he has specifically craft machine engineering. He's going to sit down at. He's staying at the inn as well, right?
Yeah, the motor lodge.
The motor lodge.
The Green Gorge Motor Lodge.
Yep. That doesn't sound like I'll be murdered there. He sits down with the typewriter that he took from Fritz Zwicky's place, and he's going to try to compose the same letter and see if there are any typewriters can be adjusted, and sometimes they don't always have the same, like, perfect set. He's going to see if he can find any similarities between the letter that we got and Zwicky's typewriter to see if it was in fact him.
Groovy. What skill you want to use? You'd mentioned a couple.
Engineering.
Could sell them all. Sure. All right. So let's resolve these. Matt, start with Buck. You want to do you or PD first?
We'll do PD.
PD.
That was a success of 20 under 70.
Okay. What you resolve, nothing immediately in town, you expand the search, checking in neighboring towns, vicinity. You end up getting a hit in Cortland, about 15 miles to the northeast medium-sized town. Trucking company. They had a truck that was rented that they have reported as missing. A deposit was made. Upon inquiries, the individual matches the description of Fritz Zwicky, but that is not the name that he gave.
Do I get the name that he gave?
Yes, it is
Random name generator.
one of them.
Zits for wiki.
Zits for wiki. I am from America.
John Stewart.
Amanda Hug and Kiss. Scott Calvin.
Calvin Klein.
Calvin Klein.
Why do you keep calling me Calvin?
J.C. Penney.
Victoria Sacrat.
Ralph Bayer.
Really, all that time we get Ralph. We waited that long for Ralph.
Bayer like
You
the
won't be able to tell with the editing.
Bayer like the aspirin.
Yeah.
Baer.
Very German.
Baer. Do I get a report of what the moving company's vehicle looked like?
Yes. You know, it's a box truck, but yeah, you have all the details, make, model, etc. It's a, medium-sized truck. It's not like a tractor trailer.
And how long ago was it rented?
About 8 to 10 days ago.
Oh, okay, so a while.
Yep.
Had to load it all up.
And how long ago was it reported missing?
3 days ago.
So missing for 3 days.
And it just went to their local PD. I mean, basically it just wasn't turned in. And then,
Yep.
It was rented for supposed to be 3 days. After a couple days beyond that went by, they reported it missing to the PD.
Okay.
All right. Your autopsy.
That was also a success of 50 under 60.
Okay. You perform the first full autopsy that you've done since med school. You've dealt with bodies, things like that before. But this is the first time you've done a no-shit, start-to-finish autopsy in about 10 years, 9 years. It comes back to you. You definitely have a couple books out next to you.
Do you use like the tools from your shed or something?
A lot of what you find
Meat facility. There's
The
hooks
meat
and
packing
chains
plant.
and
matches what you expected from the wounds on site. Fractured spine, crushed ribs, broken femur, normal amount of blood loss, bruising, contusions, lacerations to internal organs. It is around the neck and cervical spine that you find something unexpected. You knew there was massive trauma. You could feel it. You could palpate it. When you open up that region, the bones and tissue inside are burned almost beyond recognition. The bones themselves were cooked, brittle, shattered. There is no burning to the outside, but these are 4th degree burns. What you would expect from a direct lightning strike. However, they are focused just in about a 8 to 9 inch kind of area from the base of the skull down into the upper thorax.
and no visible entry on the skin.
They all radiate around where these roughly Agent Pearson-sized hands seem to have been wrapped. You want to sit on that for a little bit?
Looking at where the hands are, does it look like... Do the indentations, is there sort of any, shape to them? Do they look organic, or does it look like it could have been some sort of, metallic grasp or something else? You know what I mean?
You find no traces of metal embedded abrasions that don't match, hands. There's more force and damage, blunt damage, but there's nothing that indicates any kind of mechanical apparatus applied. There's no contact burn that something may have arced. Nothing like that. It's as if this energy originated inside and kind of just exploded and then was crushed back with force.
God damn.
Yeah. H. Pearson, digging in. Give me a law roll. Law dog.
Okay. I have a 60 in law. I don't think I've passed a single roll. I got a 91 over 60.
91 over 60.
Audrey's having trouble coping, I think, with everything that's been going on.
All these records are very incomplete. It's clear that a lot isn't here. The only thing that you find that is anything beyond just kind of normal records and whatever, there is a empty envelope that was tucked in the back of a folder of otherwise mundane paperwork. It is directed to Indian Cove Hydro Dam, and the sender was Northeast Power and Light. With just your baseline investigation, your initial information request, you cannot locate any company registered in New York, which is where this is postdated, as Northeast Power and Light.
So the sender was Indian Cove Hydro Dam? Or
No.
sorry, the recipient was Indian Cove Hydro Dam.
I'm sorry, reverse that.
Okay.
I misspoke. Yes, the recipient was Northeast Power and Light. The sender was Indian Cove Hydro Dam. It was to a P.O. box in Cortland, New York.
Agent Pearson is frustrated.
Slater,
Yep.
human roll. How'd that go?
A 44 under 60.
Could have gone either way.
You're the band.
Crit success under.
He does find Jesus.
Found him.
I cuff him. Dirty hippie.
You're coming with me.
You go to all the churches around town and don't come up with anything. You're driving back through and you stop at an intersection and you think and you take a left and you start going back up the hill to Cornell. You go to the admin office and you ask if they have a theology department. You find out they do. And you speak to a theology professor who did go to seminary, but is not an ordained priest.
Okay.
And you ask him about Fritz Zwicky. And he tells you, well, yes, it's quite funny you ask, and I don't know that anyone would have ever wondered, but it certainly scratched my brain. He's a scientist here, and well, he came to me one day. He was waiting outside the building after I'd finished a class, and he spoke to me for some time, and he wanted, he kind of laughs, he says, he wanted to ask what the church thought about where saints came from, and what is the church's opinion on how miracles were performed. He kind of laughs and like shakes his head. He says, it was the last thing I expected from a scientist, but he, to be fair, I thought he was putting me on for a bit, but he asked if he could buy me a drink and speak for a bit. We had a cup of tea and we talked for probably close to 2 hours. And the man took notes. I guess just his academic interest got me going, kind of lowered my guard a bit. And I mean, I told him what I could, which is, of course, I mean, it's very hard to confirm any of these things, and that at the end of the day, a miracle and something unexplained. Some people say that God is just what science hasn't explained yet. But to my opinion, it certainly doesn't answer all the stories and the things that we have been told, whether they're in the Bible or not. I mean, does this have anything to do with that affair that happened up at Landry Hall?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know the details, but it's been said there was a murder in one of the academic buildings.
I can't really talk about the details.
I understand. And the dean of the college has asked us not to speak on the record, but obviously as an FBI agent, I have to make my natural assumptions, my own curiosity.
Did you direct Dr. Zwicky to any additional reading or suggest anything else that he look into?
I told him many of the things that I've read, things that are available here in the college, books, religious and otherwise. And I also told him to look that humans try to find their own depictions. And sometimes beyond a story, it's good to look to art. Have you ever been to the Sistine Chapel?
No.
It's a painting by a man, some say, but if you've stood there and you have any thought in your soul that there may be a higher power and you look up at that ceiling, it's hard to think that God wasn't speaking to that man as those brushes fell. He kind of like looks up, gets a little teary-eyed. But, well.
How long ago was this conversation?
Perhaps 3 weeks, maybe. It was before finals began, so yes, maybe a few weeks.
Can I ask you another question?
Certainly.
An opinion. Do you think God takes sides? Right now, over there in Europe, you got a lot of young German boys lining up on one side, a lot of French on the other. They're all praying to the same God that they'll win, that they'll come up on top of this.
I think if God takes sides, it's beyond our understanding of what good or evil is yet. I think the way that God views creation is beyond the understanding of how we were made. I think he has a plan, but I don't think anything is foretold. And I think that we are magnificent and horrible. And someday, maybe, when the life leaves my body, maybe then will be the only time I'll ever be able to get to a place of understanding of the answer to that question.
Oh, thank you. Where's the library?
3 buildings up there. That's the best library in the Northeast.
Really?
In my opinion.
Well, thank you for your time.
Of course, and best of luck in whatever it is you're doing. And best of luck to you. I'm no priest, but I can see a man with troubles, your own or otherwise. I hope you find peace.
Thank you. Go to the library and get a list of everything that he's checked out.
Okay.
Nice work.
Wow.
Dr. Kane.
Yes, sir.
Engineering.
Yes, sir.
Engineering.
30 under 50.
Affirmative.
Affirmative.
With your straight up engineering, I was going to tell you yes.
Mm-hmm.
You can confirm that this typewriter was the exact one used to write that letter to the FBI headquarters.
Okay.
Beyond that, there is something very strange about this typewriter as you open it up. There are some strange signs of electrical arcing and damage inside this mechanical typewriter.
Like contacts.
You don't see any source of it. It's not like, there's a burn mark on the outside or it was exposed to something.
Like it's sitting next to a Tesla coil.
And almost even beyond that, like there are contacts inside that kind of like burned and fused and broke away. Like there were currents firing.
Like it was as part of a circuit.
Yes, momentarily.
Sure. Okay. Interesting.
So, a week or so has passed. But as we get into that, we're all going to make sanity rolls. Because a lot has happened. You guys have seen a lot. You've made some rolls already. But you're putting all these pieces together and you're dealing with your own experiences.
Are we assuming that we've shared all of this information with each other?
Unless anyone says they are not. We're gonna do home scenes and then we're gonna kind of bring it back in.
Okay.
So, but yes, we'll say information is being passed as we go and connections might be being made and et cetera. And we'll talk about bringing it together and the path forward. But Sergeant Buckholz, your existence has been rattled here. The quiet life that you found here in Ithaca has been shattered. A level of responsibility and accountability has been put on you beyond anything you ever wanted again in your life. You've had to delve back into a past that you put away, your medical past. You've dealt with lethal threats, and you have found something in this body that defies everything you understand. You're going to give me a sanity roll. A pass will be 1d3. A failure, 1d6.
Gross.
Holy shit.
Agent Pearson, you've had a very challenging bit of time. You have been in your first lethal encounter. You have shot 2 human beings with lethal intent. You have seen things that defy your expectation and understanding. And your control, your carefully, professionally organized control of this situation in your own feeling of professionalism is slipping from your fingers. Sanity roll 1d4 on a success, 1d8 on a failure. Agent Slater, you've been in combat before. Combat's never easy. It's never fair. It doesn't turn out the way it should in the Hollywood pictures, but it's still supposed to make sense. And you're supposed to investigate crimes, not the understanding of the universe and of the divine. Give me a roll. 1d3 on a success, 1d6 on a failure. Dr. Kane, you have also been in a lethal threat for the first time in your life, and you did it without the ability to fight back. Because why would you? You're a goddamn scientist.
That's right.
And as a scientist, you have come to a place to lend your expertise, and everything your expertise has told you has been thrown out the goddamn window. You've seen the laws of science, physics, chemistry, medicine violated. Give me a roll 1d4 on a success, 1d8 on a failure.
Perfect.
That's a good word for violated is very proper for what has happened to
92.
Not good.
Not great.
I know in some realms of Delta Green, this can remain a secret. I think for the sake of us as players and for the audience, How did everybody do? Buck.
Buck succeeded. So we rolled a D3, but rolled a maximum, so lost 3.
So you were at
him with 54 sanity points currently.
with a max of 60 and a breaking of 48.
Yes, sir.
Agent Pearson.
Agent Pearson is not coping well, but she distracts herself. She succeeded on her sanity roll, but lost 2 points of sanity, putting her at 56 out of 60, the breaking point of 48.
Agent Slater.
Agent Slater is doing okay. He made his check. He's got a pretty good theory about what's going on here. And he doesn't, it's definitely out of his wheelhouse, but it's not so much that he thinks it's impossible. It's that he's angry about it. He lost 2 sanity, putting him at 68 out of a maximum 70 with a breaking point of 55.
Holding strong, which I think is appropriate. Dr. Kane.
Atticus Kane is, well, he failed his roll with a 92 over 65, but rolled a minimum of sanity loss with a 1. So he's at 63 out of 65 with a breaking point of 52.
Okay.
I think in that weird way of seeing science broken, there is still some eagerness in a twisted way as to what may be next.
Find the new explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Scientific method.
Sometimes laws of science are broken,
That's true.
and you have to find a new law that fits it.
It's all theoretical until it's proven.
Okay, so now we're going to do a home scene. Home scenes are a very cool part of Delta Green. Normally, if you play the game as written, in the setting written, you do a mission, you do a home scene in between. And it's basically what your character is doing with, a lot of times it's extended downtime. It could be weeks, sometimes even months between a mission. And there's a mechanical element to it. So some of these might literally involve, depending on what you guys pick, acting out a scene, or just be a quick snippet, what you're doing, and then resolving it. So, Buck, you got something in mind?
Yeah. Buck is, before all of this popped off, he was supposed to be on vacation up further in the Finger Lakes in a canoe, listening to the sounds of the water lapping and watching his bobber float on the surface. And he's going to try to get some of that back, and he's going to go spend a little time in nature.
I like that. All right. So you spent a little bit of time out on, what's the name of our local lake by Ithaca? Is it Lake Ithaca?
Chayuga.
Lake
Yeah.
Chayuga.
Part of the
Finger Lakes.
Seeing as he's in charge now, his car has the radio, and it used to be quiet with the occasional speeding. Now it's nonstop chatter, and it's reminding him of being back in the busy cities of Boston, and he just has to get away. And he gets in a canoe and tries to do fishing for a couple of hours.
I like that. All right. So as you kind of focus on this, a need for yourself, this is going to reduce 1 bond by 1. So pick one of your personal bonds, and then you're going to roll a sanity test. So what bond are you choosing to reduce by 1?
I think it'll probably be with my ex-girlfriend in Boston. Probably supposed to have a phone call at some point, and instead of being there to talk to her, I'm out on the water like I always was.
All right. And the bonds, we'll see. This is a shorter term game than a traditional Delta game. So they may or may not come into a big factor, but it just shows kind of how dealing with what you guys deal with and finding ways to grasp with it can affect your personal life. Now give me a sanity check.
Critical success, 44 under 54.
Critical success. Critical success adds 4 for critical. up to your max, and you needed it.
Yes, I did.
So you're up to 58. You find some peace out there on Lake Cayuga? Cayuga.
I don't know.
Cayuga.
Cayuga. For a moment, you're able to compartmentalize it. You leave your stress, your responsibility, your questions, your fears. You leave them back in the squad car with a radio that's chirping. And you are out in the quiet peace that you sought. And even though there's a part in the back of your brain that tells you it's fleeting, you got to get back to it, you have duties, you have shit to do, taking that time and suppressing that voice and focusing and living in that moment is enough to bring you back and get you ready to do what you have to do. Agent Pearson.
With your permission, Josh and Matt, I'd like to, we see as Sergeant Buckholtz returns home from his trip, he has messages that are left at his door. Even so much as the first couple hours that he's back, he sees there's a police cruiser that comes up to his house, and it's Leach that tells him that Agent Pearson has been looking for him and needs him as soon as possible.
Oh, fuck. Leach, you're not going to believe the size of the fucking trout I caught out there, bud.
Jeez. Well, might be the last one for a while.
Yeah.
Hope you left some biting for me.
I hope I didn't, you bastard.
Yeah, she said she'd be, where'd you say you'd be?
At the PD.
Okay. Yeah, she's down at the station.
All right, let me change. Where they got you running patrols now? Down the factories, or?
Well, I got back from chasing that lead down in Cortland. So now I'm taking my turn to do the wellness checks. We got a little continuing observation on our critical university staff. So there I am, protecting the brains of America.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've been listening to the radio, but it might be more important than we think.
It's ugly over there.
Yeah. It's ugly over here, too. Good luck.
You get down to PD. Agent Pearson is sitting on the bench outside smoking a cigarette, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a pile of butts that are on the ground by her feet. Sergeant. She stands
Agent, got the notion you were looking for me? And I'll pull a hand out of his pocket full of notes.
You have time to take a little trip?
Yeah, where you want to go?
Cortland.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be a good idea, too. Seemed to be a couple of times that place popped up, huh?
Yeah. I found some records in Zwicky's personal documents. This company, can we get in the car? I'll explain to you as we go.
Yeah, let's go.
Marked as a recipient, there is a company called Northeast Power and Light. I checked the public record. There's no indication that that company exists. My best guess from what the doctor found in Zwicky's basement is that this was a false name for whatever Zwicky was doing in his basement. He posed as a company buying something or in communication with a Indian Cove hydro dam. Now, this postage, she produces the envelope, was sent to a P.O. box in Cortland. And here, she produces another piece of paper, is a warrant that we can see that we are to seize anything in that P.O. box as material evidence in a murder. We need to drive up to Cortland, go to the post office and seize anything there. In addition, anything that comes into that P.O. box will be, the chain of custody will lead directly to us. I've contacted the agency about getting a subpoena for any records from this Indian Cove hydro dam, but for now, I haven't gotten anything back. It'll probably take some time. You know how it is.
Yeah, I do.
All right. So is this staying on the case?
This is staying on the case.
Okay. So in lieu of kind of running through the whole encounter,
Yep.
we'll do the mechanical resolution,
Okay.
how that affects you as a character. And then when we kind of all come back together, see if you have any extra information from that.
Great.
What's your criminology?
My criminology is 60.
The handler secretly rolls.
Okay.
Okay. You roll 1d6 minus 3 sanity. That means you can gain or lose sanity as you desperately kind of cast aside your own personal time and just dig into it.
This is the kind of work that Pearson is used to. And she seems to be sobering up from her experience in the time past. But on the ride up, so we're both smoking, listening to music. She's tuning the radio. She has a good taste in music, but a low tolerance for garbage. So, what happened to med school? You seem to have a knack for it. Why didn't it work out?
Oh, well, not everything goes to plan.
No, it doesn't, but there's usually a reason for everything, so I'm told.
How'd you know I went to med school? Use your connections?
I'm a lawyer for the FBI.
Well, then you can just look at my file, can't you?
I have.
And? What's it say?
Files aren't people, Sergeant. There's more that I can learn from a person just by looking at them and observing them than what I could ever read in 1,000 legal texts. I'd like to know from your point of view and not from the report.
Well, let's just say a lot of that stuff that got you to be a lawyer wasn't really my cup of tea.
Can't believe paperwork is off-putting, seeing as you became a police officer.
It's not the paperwork.
Was it you don't like working in a system, do you?
No, system's fine. Works. Current one, not so much, but it is what it is. More, let's just say responsibility. Holding people's lives in your hands like that.
Sergeant, I saw you fire off multiple rounds. I think the responsibility of life and death, that's something that you've been living with. But you don't walk away from this. She takes a drag.
Oh. Walked away from Boston. So you saw that in my file too, huh?
I did. They said insubordination. I don't believe it. I think you were right. I pulled some of the reports with my connections. I think you were on the right track. I think the people above you didn't listen to you because they didn't see what you saw. I think that can be frustrating for people, make them distrust the system that they work in. But we all have to find a way to work in it. So I think you step away, find a quiet little town where you have more control over your environment. Am I hitting it so far?
It's a little easier being a big fish in a small pond.
What happens when the fish grows too big?
Somebody catches him. Should have seen the trout I had this morning. He was a fish that got too big.
She laughs. You know, if I was looking for a way to access information that was sensitive to me, I'd put someone in a position of authority. And I don't mean any offense by this, but why would they pick you? I don't see it. You're not one to follow orders, so why make an asset out of someone who won't do what you want them to do?
Excuse me? It's gonna.
Oh boy.
Car's gonna start slowing down. Take a long drag of his cigarette and look at you.
I don't think you're ready for a case like this, Sergeant. I think your judgment is underdeveloped. I think you didn't want the responsibility of this case. And when it landed on you, you weren't ready for it. Now, I don't distrust your medical expertise. I don't distrust your ability to work within the bureaucracy of the PD. But I think if we want to get this guy, Agent Slater and the resources we have at the FBI are going to be the ones that bring us to it.
Now, you chose to have this conversation on the way there? That's going to be a long ride back.
She's lost some sanity. She can't help herself.
He's gonna drag the full length of his cigarette in a single pull, roll down his window, flick the cigarette out the window, turn back to you, blow the smoke in your face, turn the music up, and just pick up down the road again. And he's not gonna say another word to you the whole time.
And we'll cut right over
a
from there.
I guess that was not establish a bond, I'm guessing.
No.
I like it. All right, Agent Slater.
Agent Slater is spending some time at the library at the college. A lot of time. He's kind of getting into a routine. He gets there when it opens. He's chummy with the librarian. He checks out all the books that Zwicky had been checking out, and he's basically spending this week or however long it is trying to understand his head, trying to understand what Zwicky was trying to figure out. So I'm staying on the case. And I guess I can kind of see how the sanity thing goes.
Okay.
But I'm, there in the morning, reading books, kind of making a routine of it. I think if the sanity goes well, then it's kind of a healing process in a way. Like he likes it. It's a good environment. It's a calming environment. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So roll your sanity, and then normally default is criminology. Do you
Correct.
think that's appropriate here? You're trying to get into the mind.
Yeah, I don't really know what else it would be. Maybe Hume Int, and maybe a combination of trying to kind of understand him and what he was trying to get out of these books, but also maybe trying to get help from the librarian.
Okay. Yeah. Give me human. Oh no, I'm gonna give. What is your human?
A 60. That's a look. I'm not sure if it's a good look or a bad
It was
look.
a leaner, but it was going one way. I let it fall.
And then my sanity, it's a D6 -3.
Yes.
So break even.
Break even.
Or roll the 3.
Did you end up or down there on that one, Devin? On your D6 -3. By the
Down 2.
that explains a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like seeing where this is going. Okay, and we'll resolve the other part of that. Dr. Kane.
I think we find ourselves in a nice home in a rural neighborhood, or suburban neighborhood, I should say, in Ithaca. And Atticus is pressing the keys, a few keys, plays a few notes on a piano in the parlor of Dr. Laporte's home. And he does so with the backdrop of maybe another agent or maybe a police officer collecting the rest of Dr. Laporte's work, his notes, his all things related to his academic studies. They're taking it out in boxes and loading it into a vehicle. And I don't know if this is, I haven't really done this before, a home scene, but he has a bond, which is the International Academy of Science. And what I want to do now is go through this information, anything that pertains to dark matter, and completely immerse myself in it and kind of take a deep dive into what Laporte was working on and try to understand the nature of the subject.
You're just going to learn dark matter in a week?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
I'm a genius. So it can either be,
Easy.
I figured, stay on the case, special training, or...
I'm going to call it special training,
Okay.
which is kind of its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give you a new sub-skill of physics.
Mhm.
Just call it physics dark matter.
Sure.
You're not going to be an expert.
Dan, haven't you ever played Cthulhu? You don't want to learn new things.
I know. I'm
That's
going
how
to die
you go
at the end of
crazy.
this.
You go crazy by learning more things.
I'll die before I ever...
Yeah, I'm
Get
going to
to-
kind of wing this one because
Sure.
it doesn't perfectly fit into any of the ones on here.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you
Mhm.
the special training automatically. It doesn't necessarily let you know everything. I'm going to let you roll for things
Sure.
that are specific to this.
Okay.
And you're going to make a sanity check.
Mm-hmm.
If you succeed, you can do what they did for stay on the case. So even if you succeed, you might lose sanity, 1d6 minus 3.
Sure.
If you fail, you lose 1d6.
Okay. Super duper.
This is awesome.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So make a sanity check.
Well, I rolled 1d8 last time. Sanity check.
The more you learn about physics, the more you're like, this ain't right.
It's all broken.
That's a fail.
Oh boy.
All right.
Shit.
D6.
D6. Shillelagh.
That a big old...
That's a big old 6.
Oh, buddy, dude.
The devil. It's the devil's number.
Okay. Currently, Buck and Slater holding pretty strong.
I was doing pretty well
Kane
up to
and
that.
Pearson are teetering.
I had a moment in his research.
And I think that is appropriate. Also, for Kane, Pearson, and Slater, you each pick one of your bonds to go down by 1. Let me know what it is. Devin, don't beat around the bush. You know what should hurt.
This is really gonna hurt. It hurts the case. Her clashing with another member of the investigative squad, and Director Hoover is not going to be happy with Agent Pearson's performance.
Ooh, okay. Like that.
I think I have neglected to call my daughter since I've been here. I've been distracted.
Dan?
Yeah, I might need help. So either a similar page out of Jake's book, in that I have not made contact with Otto since I've been here, or I don't know what I found, but with the Academy of Science, maybe what I found is breaking some of that down. I could go either way.
Okay.
I
you
don't
can
know.
think about it.
Sure.
You can
Okay.
decide in between sessions.
Yep.
Maybe the things that you've learned would
Contradict.
contradict
That's
what,
what I mean.
the Academy of
Right.
Science is.
That's why I'm not 100% sure what I found. So maybe we can talk about it later. But I'll just note that I need to reduce one of these.
As Counselor Pearson and Sergeant Buckholtz are having a quietly tense drive back, performing professionally when they reach there, Buckholtz, maybe I won't I don't want to speak for you, but maybe a little extra professionally just to really rub it in, I could see.
Oh, yeah. He sits back and does, probably to the detriment of the investigation. He doesn't ask a single question. And he probably doesn't, probably at some point while she is waiting to talk to somebody, he's going to make an excuse to go out to check something in the car, and he's going to go and just do a look at the rental place where the truck was that was up here as well, and sort of eliminate her from it.
Good call.
You guys are driving back in silence. It's about a 30, 40-minute drive, and listen to music again. And there's a break for news update, go over a couple things. And then they cut into general news report, national news. Following the news from France, Senator Robert Taft gave a speech in front of a crowd of an estimated 85,000 at Ohio Stadium as the Republican National Convention draws closer.
These are dangerous times for America, and we need a new path forward. We have watched and we have given warning as the President and his administration have continued to choose the path of provocation, the path of intervention, the path of setting our nation on a course of yet another war between the feuds of the old world powers. And now we can clearly see their folly. The complete destruction of the British Expeditionary Force at Dunkirk and the collapse of the French army has made clear that Europe has chosen their own path. Their war will come to an end, and Britain will come to terms with the end of their hegemony. They will surely be forced to make peace with their German foes. This is a time for America to step not backward into the affairs of the old powers, but forward into a new world. A strong America, a nation of peace, a nation of industry and promise, and in a few short weeks, we need your voices to be heard, not just here in Ohio, but in Philadelphia, where with your support, I will seek the Republican nomination to be the candidate for president, and we will take back Washington for the sake of all Americans. Thank you.
And as you all reconvene, gathering to discuss this case, everything that's occurred, you sit down for the first time, all four of you together, after a busy few days. You see strained looks between Buckholtz and Pearson. You see a sort of haunted, vacant look in Dr. Kane's eyes. Grim determination, almost anger, in Agent Slater's face. And the only thing you know is that whatever's happening here is greater than you could have imagined, and you're not certain you're any closer to stopping whatever is in motion here. And we fade to black.
Perfect. Everything is so great.
See you next
We're
week,
fine.
boys.
We're fine.
Oh, doozy.
Thank you for listening to the Nastygram RPG podcast. This has been the Ithaca Project. Our intro music is Walkin' with Michael Douglas by Wilhelm Scream. Outro music, Dark Ritual by Adrian von Ziegler. All scores by Adrian von Ziegler and Antti Martikainen. If you enjoy the show, please take the time to give us a rating, tell a friend, and find us and interact with us on the webs. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, email, Reddit, all that shit. And of course, see you next Tuesday.
That's nasty.